Welcome to the Note to Self podcast. I'm your host, Zoe. I'm a certified professional life coach, serial entrepreneur, verified YouTuber, and published author. On this podcast, you can expect actionable tips, reflections, and inspiration to live your best, most fulfilling life. So, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Note to Self. Today's Note to Self is a ritual for recognizing progress, and I'm going to be sharing this Note to Self with you in a bit of a story time because this was a very powerful, transformative time in my life when I was in Toronto and I was in the period known as the dark night of the soul, the Saturn return, all of that. Basically, a time in my life where I sort of felt like I was in a rut most of the time. I knew that I was healing. I knew that I was shifting. I knew that I was purging a lot of suppressed emotions, suppressed trauma from my past, and I was healing. And those times in our life, I just want to validate and acknowledge that they can be deeply uncomfortable because you know how it feels to feel good, and a lot of the time you might be crying, you might be feeling like quite emotional, you might be feeling quite vulnerable, you might be feeling quite sensitive, you might just be processing suppressed memories, and they can be a lot. And so, yeah, I want to acknowledge that those periods of time can feel uncomfortable, but also that those periods of time are right before the big magic and big highlights and big upticks start happening. And so, a powerful thing that worked for me in this time when I wasn't feeling like I was making much progress was that I was living in Toronto in my condo alone and processing a lot. And this was when there was a lot of restrictions on the world. And each Sunday, I had this little ritual where I would go to the St. Lawrence Market. And this was in Toronto near where I lived. And I would go there and I would go to this little bagel shop and it would be snowing outside. It was really cold, but every Sunday I did this. I went to the bagel shop, I bought myself a bagel, and it had this amazing cream cheese. It's If you guys live in Toronto, you got to go to the St. Lawrence Market and get a bagel. And I would get myself a delicious bagel, and I would walk outside, and I would sit like they had picnic benches outside in the back, and even if it was like really cold outside, and as long as the picnic benches weren't chained, they were chained a part of the time because of the lockdown and whatnot, so people weren't allowed to sit on them. But anyways, I would stand out there, and there's a beautiful view of the CN Tower, beautiful view of the city from the St. Lawrence Market, the back of it. And I would eat my bagel and just reflect on what I'd learned about myself in that week. And I did this every single Sunday. And what I found that by leaving my house and having this ritual of going to one place each week by myself, reflecting, having this little routine, I noticed that each week that I was sitting there, standing there, eating my bagel, I was a different version of myself, that I was actually making quite a bit of progress week by week. And even though, like I said, it sort of had this feeling like I was in a rut or I was sort of in a lower vibrational period, that's what it felt like, anyways. I was still recognizing, like, oh, I'm actually becoming the butterfly. I'm actually learning. I'm actually growing. I'm actually evolving. And in that reflection, I could then celebrate my successes. I could celebrate my wins. I could see that, like I said, change was happening and I could validate that for myself. Because as much as other people can say like, "Oh, like you're changing, you're transforming," it can be a very very empowering process and experience for us to recognize that within ourselves. So this ritual that I had of going to get a bagel, of leaving my house and doing the same thing each week and reflecting actually was incredibly empowering for me. It allowed me to acknowledge me. It allowed me to have this special time each week to acknowledge myself, everything that I've been through, everything I'm overcoming, and then also begin to lean into and think into and feel into the success that would be on the other side of this. Because whenever we're feeling like we're in a bout of healing, perhaps like a little bit of a rut, I promise you that if you think about, well, what have I been calling into my life? Okay, so let's say that I'm using the example of calling in a relationship, and then you find yourself in a healing period where you're healing the unlovable wound. That was what was happening for me at that time. And recognizing that each week I was feeling more and more lovable and that I was loving on myself more and more. that was insanely powerful. And it was insanely powerful because it came from me. It came from me choosing myself and choosing to take the time to acknowledge who I was becoming, recognizing what I had been calling in beforehand, also being able to be the gentle observer of, oh, I'm in a bout of healing, healing the unlovable. Well, of course, because if I'm calling in love, no wonder I'm healing the unlovable wound so that I can actually feel into, allow in more love than I've ever known. And so it is. So wherever you find yourself today, I encourage you to take on a ritual for recognizing progress. Whether or not you find yourself in a rut, I think this can be definitely powerful. I know for myself here in Bali, there are certain places that I go back to visit, maybe not on a weekly basis, but when I go back to visit, I remember that, wow, the last time I visited this place, it was a completely different version of me. And reflecting on that can be so powerful because it's like, wow, so much has happened since then. I've actually up leveled so much since then. X, Y, and Z has happened, and that's been amazing since then. So remember that you always have the opportunity to celebrate yourself. You always have the opportunity to reflect and be your own best friend and be your own support system in ways, and it can be incredibly empowering. And as I wrap up this episode, I would love to invite you into the Digital Nomad Academy, which I will be linking down below. This is an incredible 6-month program that's presently on early bird special. You guys, this is all of my secrets. This is an amazing, action-packed, inspiring course. And there are payment plans available if that feels aligned with you. I wanted to make this course especially very accessible for people because I know what it's like to be at the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey or a place in which you feel like you really want to uplevel your business. You want to be creating more income for yourself. So I wanted to create this course to be incredibly accessible to people and also incredibly inspiring and educational for people. There's going to be so much jam-packed into that course. So I encourage you to check out the page that I'll be linking down below for more information about everything that you can learn and understand and gain in this course. And I would love to see you inside, expanding into your next level self with more fun, more freedom, more finances. And I love you guys so much. Wherever you're at in your journey, know that it's absolutely perfect. And I'm holding you so, so big. Lots of love. Thank you for listening to Note to Self. If you enjoyed this episode, please help me out by rating and reviewing this show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If my energy is resonating with you and you feel the call to work with me, there are an abundance of ways to do so. I offer one-to-one life coaching programs, mastermind containers, and DIY courses, all of which are available through my website, zoearielpoulsen.com. Until next time, take note of all the abundance that surrounds you as you make the most of this game called life.